tribinu Instituta za etologiju i folkloristiku i predavanje u okviru projekta Europski režim i regulariziranih migracija Hrvatske zapadne znanost koji se provodi na ovom institutu. So welcome to the Institute of Ethnology and Folklore Research. My name is Marijana Hameršak, and it's my honor and pleasure to announce a lecture by our colleague Cristina Del from the University of Grenoble. Thank you for being here with us. I will just shortly say a few words about you, and then Cristina will present. You know, this is the things you know. So as I said, Cristina Del works as a researcher and assistant professor in geography at the University of Grenoble since 2017. Before, she was working at the University of Geneva for many years, and in that period she also was a postdoc researcher at the University of Amsterdam, and for several years she worked also with an NGO involved in asylum rights.
And information, so like more about asylum information, media, and working with journalists as well on how to inform about migrations and asylum seekers a bit more in a fair way. That was good. 2-3 years.
You were a project leader.
Yeah.
And now as a researcher, she's interested in geographical, political, and social dimensions of migration. Her research currently focuses on the way in which migrants cross Alpine borders, and more particularly on the fatal lethal consequences of increased border controls in that area. She's also interested in local and urban forms of reception and their structuring into networks. Cristina is the author of a book about building of Alpine region.
It was my former life.
Yes, and in this life she wrote a number of research articles as well. She's one of the editors of the bilingual French and English special issue of Journal of Alpine Research focused on migration and research, and that special issue influenced us even before we met us at the project when we were writing about forests as a weaponized landscape in Croatia. The special issue about Alps as a border region helped us to think about some common and common features. So finally, Cristina also took a part in counter investigation of the death of Blessing Matthew, a young Nigerian girl whose lifeless body was discovered in 2018 at the French-Italian border, but this is something that Cristina will tell us more about in her presentation. The floor is yours, Cristina.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mariana. I'm really happy to be here. Actually, the last time I was in the former Yugoslavian region, let's say like that, was 10 years ago, trying to have a look at the border crossing at that time, so before the migration crisis, although nobody calls it like that, but we understand each other if we say like that. So it was, before the corridor of the Syrians was established as well during this year. So 10 years later I'm here, and I'm really glad to be with you, although the subject is not such a funny one. As Mariana said, I didn't do alone. I did with a lot of colleagues a counter investigation on Blessing Matthew's death that occurred in 2018 at the French-Italian border. And I will tell you what we did, how we built this investigation, and a bit the results, and what we did with these results. So this investigation finished 1 year ago. In May 2022. But first I would like just to come back with a stuff that you won't be able to read. I know about that. So it's how I started actually. Like when I arrived in Grenoble 2017, I started to think how to build a database on deaths at the Alpine border, since there were information which we collected from bits and there in the Alps, but we didn't have a systematic database. And I said to myself and to my colleagues, if we want to politically say something, we need to have a picture which is shows the systematicity of the lethal borders. So I started like that, like trying to do that. Was not that easy to know, where is the information, who has the information, where do the Alps start and ends. So this is, you know, a conversation that I have and we have with Mariana, which cases should be considered as, you know, deaths for people trying to cross the borders, to cross the Alpine border and so on. So, but at the end, we took decisions and we had this database kind of finalized, not public yet, but soon. And this is actually the perimeter that we have chosen with one S. I don't know why I put two S there. We have chosen with Sarah Bachellery. She's now a PhD doctor student. At that time, she was intern with me, and we decided to, you know, more or less this yellow band is the one where we consider that the person would be dead by crossing the Alpine borders. And as you see, there's one border which is not far away from here. You know, the Croatian and Slovenian border being one of the ones that are included in the database. And thanks to this, we actually had this result, having a number at the end of how many persons died crossing the Alpine borders, and we reached the conclusion of 121 migrants who died between 1993. This is where we started. We know that before they were even, you know, during the Second World War and probably even after, but this is, you know, contemporary level borders, if you want, and we had these 121 migrants, and as you can see as well, 3/4 of them occurred between 2016 and 2023, which means exactly at the moment where the Alpine states, if we want to call it like that, started to reintroduce systematic border controls, where they militarized the borders as well, and where they decided to, as I said, try to close the border. So it's not fatal events; it's the results of political and political decision and political decision on how to regulate border crossings. So it's like, you know, it's as well, that was as important as well to have this database in order to show this occurrence, you know, this parallel between when you close the borders and when you have fatal events. And I'm going to show you now a map where you probably do not see much, and I'm sorry that you do not see anything that's part of, it's recorded, I cannot say everything, you know, but this wonderful map that you can see on Border Forensics internet site, it's difficult to show somehow, but you can maybe, I start dancing, you can imagine these are the Alps, okay, the Alpine arc, and here you see the two circles, big circles. It's where the majority of the deaths occurred, and it's what is called the southern Italian-French border and the northern Italian-French border. And almost half of the occurrence took place there. So in 2021, so two years ago, yeah, something like, I decided to start working with two colleagues of mine, Charles Leller and Lorenzo Pezzani, and to start doing what we call a counter investigation of one of these 121 cases. And this investigation was to try to reconstruct the events that brought to the death of Blessing Mathieu, who died in May 2018 in the northern part of this French-Italian border. Charles and Lorenzo, which are friends and colleagues, had shortly before 2021 founded an NGO called Border Forensics, after having worked for more than 10 years on deaths at the Mediterranean border. And they're going to just quickly tell you a couple of words on what this border forensic architecture forensic is, so that you can understand, you know, the kind of work we have done. So I don't know, in Serbo-Croatian you use forensic as a word, which is because in France, you know, they never use this word. They use so it's always like, oh, what is that? But actually, it's what you see there in Crimi series as well, where you see forensic, forensic police, or scientific police as well, as it's called, to try to collect evidence in order to go at the scene of crime and try to see, to take evidence. This evidence is given then to the justice, and then they make a trial out of this evidence that has been collected. Forensic architecture is doing kind of the same type of work, but they are doing that on, for example, when buildings are collapsing, and in order to know who is paying what. So working for insurances, for example, to see, okay, it collapsed because of that, the responsible person is that, and then, you know, this insurance will have to pay for the disaster and the collapse. I know it's kind of far away from what I'm working on, but we are coming to the point as well. So, an important figure of this way of using the techniques of forensic architecture to other kind of crimes that they are committed is this person. This person is called Eyal Weizmann. Eyal is an architect, an Israeli architect, and he founded a multidisciplinary research group that is called Forensic Architecture at the Goldsmith Institute in London. So Eyal, as I said, is a researcher, and he worked for the Palestinian authorities in order to see how he could try to use the architectural techniques and forensic techniques together in order to investigate not on, you know, crimes that are, you know, perpetrated from one person to another one, but by the states, and for I would say for systematic and state violence and human rights violations. And he tried to do it first of all in the setting of the Palestine and Israeli conflict. And what he tried to show is that the Israeli state was perpetrating violence not only via physical violence, but as well on how, with actually buildings, architecture, and in structural violence, they were doing actually the same than they could do with in direct violence or physical violence. So what it opened up was a much more political horizon of investigation, and taking state violence as the focal point and not the personal violence anymore. So forensic architecture is based actually, as I said, on the same methodologies as forensic science, but the investigation they carry out, they are really focusing on states and public power, and they make counter-investigations and not investigations, because of course the state who perpetrates violence does not make investigation of their own violence, but you need somebody else who's trying to counter-investigate on this violence. And a book that, if you are interested in this kind of work, the English probably, I read the French version, but you have it around, wonderful, Mariana. So Forensic Architecture, Violence at the Threshold of Detectability from Eyal Weizmann. And we probably have it, we're going to have it in our hands quite soon. So, actually, as I said, in 2010, Lorenzo Pezzani and Charles Belher, who studied and made a PhD with Eyal Weizmann in London, they founded this new association called Border Forensics. And what they try to do, the aim of this association is, and I quote them, investigate border violence and to foster mobility justice in settings which are the border settings. So they tried actually the first investigation or counter investigation they did was in the Alps, and was on Blessing case, in which I was involved. Do you follow me? Do you have questions? Is it okay?
I'm sorry, the book is borrowed.
No, and you do not have to be sorry that the book is borrowed. It's a good news, actually. It's actually a good news. So, in this investigation on Blessing, there was, of course, Charles and Lorenzo involved, me, and Sarah Bachellery, that you heard before, the person who helped me to constitute the database. And the four of us were the main investigators, and then we had a bunch of really wonderful persons that were really good in techniques, in design, in something that I'm really bad on, but there was really, you know, a team of persons who worked on this case. And just to let you know a bit where it is, so it is, I'm going to speak about Briançon. Briançon is in France, somewhere there, I think. And La Vachette is a small village where actually Blessing died, just 10 kilometers before Briançon. So, and it's located somewhere there. So you're going to hear La Vachette, the small cow, which is the name of the village, and Briançon, which is a city where actually the persons who cross the border find the first solidarity networks, not the first, but a place to stay for 1 or 2 nights in order for them to be able to continue the journey. So we are on the other sides of the Alps compared to where we are now. I'm going to show you now two and a half minutes of a video where actually the setting is, you can see the frame of the setting and the journey of Blessing and the 2 companions with whom she was when she crossed the border. And we tried with the sound and the video and everything functioned. Let's hope.
On the 9th of May 2018, the body of a young black woman was discovered in the Durance River. It was blocked by the gates of the Prel Dam, downstream from Briançon in the French Haute-Alpes department. The investigation that was then initiated led to the identification of the young woman a few days later as Blessing Matthew, aged 21 and originally from Nigeria. She had just crossed the Franco-Italian border and was last seen alive in the village of La Vachette on the 7th of May. Since 2015, the strengthening of police controls at the Alpine borders has made crossing the mountain dangerous for migrants whose mobility is illegalized. As a result, 46 cases of migrant deaths have been documented at the French-Italian borders since 2015. Blessing was the first recorded case of death in the Haute-Alpes department. 2 other people have died there since then. Behind each of these cases is a person whose life has come to an abrupt end, and behind each person lie grieving relatives. However, to this day, no actor has been held responsible for these deaths. The practices of control that puts migrants' lives at risk have thus been allowed to continue with impunity. Blessing had arrived on the 6th of May in Clavière, the last Italian village before the border. It is there that she met Hervé S. and Roland E. Around midnight, they set off in the direction of Briançon, walking through the mountains to avoid being intercepted and pushed back at the border. Blessing and her companions then continued their journey by walking on the main road so as not to get lost. Roland's telephone line activated a cell tower located less than 2 kilometers from La Vachette. At around 4 a.m., Blessing, Hervé, and Roland arrived at the entrance to the village from where they could see the church, which they identified as a refuge. It was there that the mobile gendarmerie patrol from Tlancy, deployed in the area to reinforce the border police for immigration control and maintenance of order, attempted to arrest them.
So you see this, the dynamics, and I'm gonna, so that's where actually we started working on. So we knew that something happened that day. We knew that there were police forces there that morning, and as in the video you heard, there was a legal complaint that was put forward from a local association, Tous Migrants. And by the 2 sisters, one of the sisters of Blessing, Christiana, but actually the case was filed and there was no real investigation at that point. So the judicial authorities have done absolutely nothing to ensure that the truth was, would have been revealed. So that's where, as I said, we started doing the opposite job and saying to counter-investigate in order to know what happened and who was the responsible persons. And so this is just to put you there, the legal chronology that took from 2018 to 2021, so 3 years, where at the end we had nothing in our hands. And as I said, that's where we started working. Maybe what time is it? I have time. Yeah, I think I'm going to show you because it's. I'm going to show you the video. And then we enter the evidences that we collected. But first, I would like to show you the video of that we produced, where we interviewed the two sisters living in Italy, of Two Sister Blessing, Christiana Obie and Happy, and the main testimony, a witness of the event that has been recorded as well. And they explain a bit why they are still searching for truth and justice. And the video is about 4 minutes, 4 or 5 minutes. And it's in English, but from time to time there are subtitles when Hervé is speaking because it's French.
It's my girlfriend. It's my friends in Nigeria. We went to the same school and graduated together. It's my friends that just decided to say blessing because we always speak like a prophet at times.
So anytime that maybe I'm hungry or I'm still happy, she'll just start, tell them see our eye don't clear, tell them see our eye don't open. She loves song. She loves song. I think that she wants to become a musician, but later she said she wants to become a doctor.
And my sister dream wanted to build hospital after I became a doctor and open orphanage house. That is what my sister always talk about.
Quand on s'est rencontrés, elle m'a donné l'impression d'une fille joyeuse. T'es pas inquiète. C'est vrai que quand tu es au foyer à clavier, plus le temps s'approche, plus tu stresses. Parce que tu vas faire un truc que tu n'as jamais fait dans ta vie, marcher sur les montagnes. Tout le monde était fier qu'on va traverser, on va se retrouver en France. On ne pensait pas au pire. On pensait juste à la joie.
So now he called me, do you know what happened? I said, what happened? The sister is dead. I said, how? When?
Là, si on continue à courir dans le jardin, le monsieur dit arrête-toi, arrête-toi. Il ne fait que courir. Elle est arrivée au bout du jardin, elle a hésité, après elle est descendue. Non, c'est là que j'ai compris que le bruit que je suivais c'était la rivière. Elle descendait pour chercher à traverser. C'est là qu'elle dit à la police que si tu me suis, je vais me jeter. La police n'a pas réagi, il lui a suivi. Il est parti, il a attrapé sa main d'appui. Il a commencé à la brutaliser. Il tirait Blessing. Blessing a commencé à crier leave me, leave me, leave me. Après, Blessing est tombé dans l'eau.
So I can be able to feel it how my sister will be shouting, help, help. Nobody is there to help. He said, but the police people see that my sister fell down, they decided to not help my sister. That's where I was very, very angry.
They just leave someone to just die because it's not white like them. It's not French person like them.
I have to fight this case because I can't just let my sister to just die just like that simply because you want to protect your country. That is the reason why we are still pushing on, because close the case first time, second time, and we are still pushing on. I wish that this time around justice must take place.
C'est important parce que nous les immigrants à la frontière, on nous prend comme des animaux. Blessé, c'est pas la première fois. Peut-être on va camoufler beaucoup de choses. Il y a beaucoup d'autres personnes qui sont passées dans cette même situation. Et je n'aimerais pas que demain après demain, ça se reproduise encore sur d'autres qui vont arriver.
Just find this justice when I will be happy. A little bit happy because it's painful that I cannot see my sister again. I cannot even speak with him. It's not good. It's painful.
So, actually, on 30th of May 2022, so a bit more than 1 year before today, the file requesting the reopening of the case and of the investigation was submitted to the court of Gap, city in France, by a lawyer with whom we worked, Vincent Brengert. And the pieces of evidence that we produced are part of this file that was given to the justice. So what are these three pieces that we produced and that were handed to Maître Brengert in order to ask for reopening the case? There are three types of evidence that we produced. One was the, if you want to put it like that, but it's what the border forensic or forensic architecture said, it's patterns. So the case, where the case is, how do you say, how the case we are working on is not isolated, it's within a framework and a political and social and legal framework. So we analyze this framework in order to understand what happened, and it was not a coincidence that this happened to Blessing that day. So this is what a bit I showed you with the first video, but we really produced a more geopolitical analysis of the situation at the border, the weeks and months before and after the death of Blessing. And was a context where systematic violence at the borders and violation of human rights was documented by local NGOs, for example. Then we did what we call the space-time reconstruction of the gendarmes, so the police forces that they were at the moment present when they tried to stop Blessing and the two fellows together. And actually what happened is that since Tous Migrants, the association, and the sister of Blessing, Christiana, I don't know if what you actually, how do you say really in English, but they were civil party in the complaint. So being civil parties, they could access to the file, so to the criminal file and to the documents within this criminal file. So in this file there were as well the declaration of the gendarme during the preliminary inquiry that the police did, internal. So that was not in front of the judge, but was just internal. They took notes on these files, and out of these notes we could reconstruct a bit what they said in this declaration of the 12, but we took just 6 gendarmes that were present at the moment. And we made, as I said, a space-time reconstruction in a map and in a map. I'm going to show you the video later on, or bits of it. It's really long video, 25 minutes. I'm going to just show you a bit, just in order that you know the work that we did. what is important to know is that actually these declarations of the police were then used and by a I have to say now I'm getting lost with the names of the person. The judicial police, I think you do like that. The ones that they are doing the investigation inside the police, they took these declarations and they made a synthesis. This synthesis has been given to the judge, to the prosecutor, sorry, and the prosecutor, out of this synthesis, decided not to open the case. So it's really, so this piece is important because this synthesis, what they said is that the 12 declarations were not contradictory at all, and they were homogeneous, and they showed that they didn't put in danger blessing. And what we did is exactly the opposite. I mean, we came to the conclusion that actually nothing, absolutely nothing, was coherent in what they said. And we tried with these incoherences to put them in a map, which is, as you can imagine, quite a difficult task, making a coherent story in a video, because you need a script somehow of a complete incoherent stories that you have in your hands. So it was a difficult part of the work, you know, how to juggle with that. This was the second piece of evidence, and the third one, we found Hervé. Hervé was the testimony, so the witness of what happened to Blessing. He was with Blessing until the end, so until when she fell in the water. And we found him, and we asked him, and of course, we asked him if he wanted, and he said yes, to come back to La Vachette with us, to record him, to record the witness, and to make a reconstruction of the events as he has witnessed them. So this was the third element of evidence. So as you have seen, this is the first one with this map that you can, where you cannot see anything, but you can see it again on Board of Forensics internet site, and this political and legislative context. I won't come into the details with that. But there's this second element of evidence where you can see a bit, you know, how we worked. So this is the final product. So the map, which is a video, and I'm going to show you bits of that, a couple of minutes. And then we really, like, what we did is that we had, like, I don't know how many cameras as well, with personal figurants that we were really, like, trying to, with the notes that we had of what the police was declaring, we are saying, okay, gendarme 1 was saying that, he was here, he says that he made 500 meters, and we tried to check if on the ground was possible to make 500 meters. So this is the kind of work that we did, and we recorded that, and then we put it in a map. And I'm going to show you now the video. I'm going to try to see if I can manage to start from minute 13. There. So it's stage, we divided it into 4 stages, if I remember right, so that we had at least a point of a space and a moment on time and space where we started the reconstruction. And I'm going to show you from stage, I think stage 3 that I'm going to show you, and again, a couple of minutes. And if you want to have a look at that, 25 minutes of that, it's on the website.
Stage 2. In the centre of the village, the gendarmes necessarily found themselves in front of the bridge which crosses over the Durance. All of them, except for Chief R, stated that they had entered the village by car. However, the 3 passengers in the same car give 3 different accounts. Without taking these contradictions into account, the judicial police investigation establishes that the migrants scattered in the night on the right bank of the Durance.
There is the river there.
According to the investigators, thanks to the action of the gendarmes, the migrants crossed the bridge, going further towards the centre of the village and thus moving away from the dangerous river. The investigators used this argument to rule out the possibility that the gendarmes endangered the fugitives. However, none of the gendarmes claimed that the 3 people went to the right bank. The trajectories that they describe at this point are completely different. R2 and R3 state that they saw 2 people turn left before the bridge, and a third continues straight across the bridge to the right bank.
So this is, for example, one version, right? With the same
R2, R3 and their colleagues then got out of the vehicles. R2 and R3 claimed to have followed by foot the person who had gone towards the church on the right bank, while Chief R and R1 went to the left bank to look for the other 2. They do not say where the drivers and the 2 cars were. According to R3, after a quarter of an hour of searching, the gendarmes on foot gathered again near the church. R1, from the other car, also says that he saw the 3 people separate as the cars were leaving the village. 3 locations are therefore possible, far from the one described by his colleagues in the centre of the village. However, other elements in R1's testimony give the impression that the scene did take place in the centre, just before the bridge. Indeed, R1 says that he saw 2 people go left towards.
So this is really the way we worked, like taking every statement as such and trying to see, what they say. What actually, because before we came, Tous Migrants was already like reading and rereading and rereading and rereading the files, and they were almost sure, and this is before we met Hervé, that probably Blessing fell down on the left bank. And actually, thanks to Hervé, we could manage to understand that she probably fell, most probably fell on the right side. Okay, but this is, again, the kind of work we did in order to really to really show that actually nothing was coherent, so somebody was not saying the truth. It took ages to do that. That video really made us mad. Because it's, again, as I said, it's really difficult to make something readable for the public when there's absolutely nothing that makes sense. It's like how you make sense of something without sense. And this was much more easy to do. I mean, at least technically, let's say, but emotionally much more moving. It's when we found Hervé, and Hervé decided to work with us, and he really collaborate with us. So it's really part as well of, thanks to him, actually we could finally have the idea. And actually, when we had his version, it was easier for us to understand where were the points of incoherence that the gendarme said. So what we did, as I said, we decided to we asked Hervé to come to La Vachette. We had a kind of technical devices and setting where we set up with a camera. We just recorded the process somehow. With one camera was like the eye of Hervé, so what was always there in order to ask Hervé to check if we, to watch in the video to see if it was what he really saw that day. And then we made as well 3D and mapping reconstruction in order to show the topography and the place as well. So Hervé was absolutely wonderful. I mean, we were 3 days with him at the place, and we were always asking, questions, and always, to be more precise and to ask again. And every time maybe he's asking, oh, but Hervé, doesn't make sense now what you're saying, because, this is not coherent. And every time we had these kind of questions, he always replied with something like saying like, oh, but yes, because of that and that, and it made, again, really much sense. So he really remembered 4 years later exactly what happened that morning. It was 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning in May 2008. And yeah, as I said, we were like 2-3 days with him. It was raining, cold, of course. You know, it's known. This region is known to be the sunniest one in France, and you know, the 3 days we were there, it was raining and really, really cold. And I'm gonna do the same again, but stage 3. I'm gonna try to show you. So I need a minute, 10, 15, 3. Okay. So I'm going to show you one of the moments we'll start in stage 3, how we worked with Hervé and with the reconstruction.
Donc on a couru jusqu'à devant. Blessing est tombée. Elle est tombée là devant.
Où ça exactement?
Ça,
Au niveau des fleurs.
Ici, là.
Ouais, là, au milieu, au centre.
Là.
Ouais, elle est tombée là. Quand elle est tombée, le temps de se relever, elle a continué à courir. Moi, je suis entré comme ça.
C'était à quel endroit tu rentres dans le jardin?
Dans le jardin, je suis entré par là-bas.
Bon, on va le faire avec toi.
it's the garden just behind the church.
Donc, à partir de là, j'ai commencé à ramper. J'ai commencé à ramper là. C'est là que je vois Blessing descendre. Je suis couché là. À ce moment-là, Blessing ici, au milieu des escaliers, en train de descendre. Et le policier, lui, est là, en train de venir et d'arriver.
Est-ce que tu te souviens si le policier disait quelque chose à Blessing?
Ouais, il était en train de dire arrête-toi, arrête-toi, arrête-toi. T'arrêtes pas, on va tirer, arrête-toi.
Blessing goes down the stairs, pursued by one of the gendarmes who shouts at her to stop, while a second one points his torch at her from the car park. A third gendarme, also carrying a torch, went looking for Hervé around the houses to the left of the garden. Hervé's description of the scene corresponds very precisely to the testimony of Jérôme P., collected by 2 migrants. This person, who was staying near the garden, describes having seen several gendarmes with torches and having heard them shouting, "Stop, it's the police." This witness was cited in the complaint filed by Blessing's sister, Christiana O.B., but he was never heard by the judicial police. According to Hervé, despite being ordered to stop, Blessing keeps walking through the garden in the dark, chased by the gendarme. Having crossed the garden, she comes up against the torrential river.
Là, tu arrives à peine à voir Blessing à travers les herbes, mais tu vois Blessing à travers les herbes.
Ouais. À partir de là où Blessing est, quand elle arrive, elle s'arrête. Parce qu'elle ne savait pas qu'il y a une rivière. C'est là qu'elle veut chercher à traverser. Donc, en descendant, elle a posé sa main. Il faut prendre l'appui pour descendre plus près pour chercher à traverser. Le policier est parti la retrouver en bas.
Le policier l'a retrouvé en bas, c'est ça?
Oui, en bas.
Donc il y a un moment où le policier touche Blessing. Tu vois qu'il la touche.
Oui, il arrête sa main.
Il arrête sa main.
Oui, sa main d'appui quand elle descendait.
Et la prend comme ça.
Oui, il arrête comme ça. C'est là que Blessing crie lift me, lift me, lift me. Mais après, c'est comme si quand elle s'est défendue aussi, elle a tapé la main du policier. Le policier a lâché.
Elle est tombée. Dès qu'elle est tombée, elle a commencé à crier, elle est venue, elle est venue, elle est venue. Au fur et à mesure qu'elle criait, elle est venue, ça s'éloignait.
The volume and flow of the Durance were particularly high in May 2018 due to snowmelt. Its calm current at the time of our visit in October 2021 was torrential.
So I stop it here, but again you can watch it in case you want to. This is much more accessible to follow the story if you want to watch this. It's about 20 minutes videos with 4 different stages. So these 3 elements that I've shown to you, we gave this to the Gap prosecutor office, and then the prosecutor of Gap told us that Grenoble was actually the judicial administration that was in charge of that. So we gave to Grenoble to the Grenoble court the material. And actually we did it end of May. If you remember, 30th of May we made this public conference. And 2 weeks later, in an incredibly quick decision which never happens in France, the prosecutor of Grenoble, the public prosecutor, answered to us in a letter, really short letter, like not even 1 page. And of course, they probably didn't have even time to I'm going to give you the and to everybody who wants to have it. And because I think it's quite interesting to know the 2 points that they've written. And it was actually the repetition of what they decided in February 2021, the same words. And saying actually what we decided in February 2021, it's still valid now in May 2022. And this is what it was written. So, first, the contradictions invoked between the various statements of the gendarme do not seem to be relevant, since each gendarme describes his intervention and his position. It's not a problem of translation, okay? In French is exactly the same words and the same meaning, or no meaning, okay? So this is one, okay? They said where they were, and actually what we proved as well is that they said where they were, but not being coherent at all. So this is the first point, the first element of the decision. And the second one, which is probably even more shocking, is that Hervé's hearing is not useful for establishing the truth, right? Hervé was, as again, the last person seen, with the gendarmes actually, the last person seen Lessing alive. And it was actually the person who could say the dynamics of what happened that day and that morning when Lessing fell into the river. So, as you can imagine, we're not really happy with this answer. And what we did, so we tried to, and that's what is going on now, we tried to appeal to the European Court of Human Rights. We did that in October 2022, and on 23rd of November 2022, we received the first answer, but it's just the formal answer by the court saying that our appeal was formally admissible. So there is therefore maybe the possibility that one day the European Court of Human Rights would ask France, because this is what we asked actually, that France will do the job, so do the real investigation that they didn't do because they didn't want to open the case and to make a real investigation. So maybe like in 2, 3, 4 years, the court will ask France to do, and maybe France will start doing the investigation. So it's a really, really, really long period, but well, this is one way that we try to ask publicly for truth and justice. the other ways as well, to continue speaking about her, about the case, and what I'm doing here now for you, but we are trying to do it as well, in other frames. And we are thinking as well, if there would be another possibility to either maybe start a new complaint somehow, or try to see if there are other ways to seek for justice and truth. And just to finish with a phrase, with a sentence that we put in our press release in October 2022, and was probably the final word, is we refuse to accept that the violence that cost Blessing Matthew her life should be compounded by impunity, and that's why actually we continue to fight for this case. And this is my last word.